Zero clearance inserts for table saws help make safer and cleaner cuts, so I wanted to make one for mine using maple. During this project I made a lot of mistakes, so I'm hoping someone watching this who is going to make a zero clearance insert can learn from my mistakes and have an easier time doing so. I managed to plane down the board to the right thickness before cutting out the shape and putting it in the table saw, which I was a little surprised by, but using the calipers really helped. Something you can do here instead is by adding set screws like a normal insert has, so you can level it yourself. There's nothing too special about initially cutting out the insert, just running through the bandsaw in the shape I traced out, but I wanted to preserve the tabs on the back to help hold the back of the insert in on the table saw so the blade doesn't kick it up. This was a little tricky, but I had to do a lot of fine tuning with the chisel and hand saw, and eventually I got it right. I did some fine tuning on a disc sander, just going around each one of the edges, rounding it off till I got to the pencil line. I was ready to make my first test fit, and this is where I realized another mistake. I have this weird tab on the inside of my table saw, really more of a ridge going across about half of it, and it was causing it to stick up too much. So my next step was just trimming out space for that using my router. I marked a couple lines to know the start and end point, and just slowly worked my way through, making sure to not reverse the speed direction so I didn't have to worry about a kickback on the router table. Something I should point out is if I was using set screws to level the insert, and if it was thinner, I could have avoided this whole problem, and that's actually going to be a common theme throughout the rest of this video for my other mistakes. With the slot cut out, I was ready for another test fit, and it all looked good until I realized the front was springy. This is because the blade couldn't lower enough, so I had to go back over to the router table and cut out a slot in the middle to give the blade room. After I had that done, before I got too far in the project, I wanted to add a finger hole so I could easily get the insert out. For this I just used a spade bit because then I could start the drill, angle it, and then finish the hole all the way through. To hold the front of the insert in place, I just used the clip from the original insert, just transferred it right over, because it's just held in by a screw. I was ready to cut the slots through the insert by taping it down to the table just to make sure it wouldn't move at all as I was cutting through, and this is where I made some more mistakes. Again, running into a problem with the thickness of the insert, first of all, because when I moved the table saw to an angle, the blade was then hitting the insert again, so I couldn't move the saw blade up through the cut before removing material manually using the miter saw and router table. And I also forgot I needed room for the riving knife, so I used a jigsaw, a handsaw, and then a chisel to help clean up more room. So, trying to cut out the slot, which according to every video I saw was supposed to be the easiest part, that turned out to be this huge ordeal. Now for cutting out the slot, I think the first thing I could have done is made the insert thinner and use setting screws, and the other, if I followed the official Bosch zero clearance insert and left room for the riving knife in the back, I probably could have ended up with something that's not this much of a train wreck. But luckily, it doesn't look as bad when it's actually flipped over and inserted properly. So this will work, but I'm hoping people learn from my mistakes.